Okay, so there's the seal driven onto the actual outer end of the axle shaft. I put some Teflon sealant on the inside of the seal just to increase how well it seals, and then I pried this other seal out of the end of the axle tube here, and I go to put this one in, and I thought, well, that doesn't fit very well, but it doesn't seal around there, it just seals around the outer edge here, just around here, so I'll have to find a seal driver to tap that in. So there's the dust seal driven in place. It just seals around the outer lip here, and I put some Teflon sealant in there as well. It's just more or less to keep the dirt and dust from going down the axle tube. It's not really an oil seal. The oil seal's way inside there. Requires complete differential disassembly to service. Okay, make sure the stud holes for the ball joints are clean and dry and no oil or grease on them. I've installed the lower ball joint and semi-torqued the nut down there. I've installed the upper ball joint and the sleeve. Now it's okay to put never sees on the outside of the sleeve here, but don't put it on the taper. The taper should be clean and dry, no dirt, no oil. And we're going to find the specs for the torque on these two ball joints. So the bottom nut on the bottom ball joint is torqued to 150 foot-pounds, and the top one torqued to 69 foot-pounds, and then align the cotter pin hole. Don't back the nut up. If you have to, tighten it slightly more to get the cotter pin hole to line up. It's very important that this sleeve be cleaned and the bore be cleaned like it has been. Otherwise you'll end up with stiff steering and hard to steer, possibly binding. This one seems to be okay now. Okay, put some light grease on the inner surface to help the seal slide in and also to keep it from rusting in the future. And make sure that that passage through this vacuum line, which goes into a port in there, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it with the camera, make sure that that is open and clear, which I've blown air through there already. And we're going to coat the outside of the axle shaft with grease and the outside of the seal with grease, and then install it. Okay, so now the shaft is installed and we're ready to use the seal driver to drive this seal in with the axle shaft at the same time. And here is the seal driver that I'm going to use. That fits right inside there like so, and we use a fairly big hammer to drive it in. So there's the axle shaft installed with the seal pushed all the way in and the U-joint in place and the axle in place. So we're ready to change the seal on the wheel bearing assembly here. You'll see that yellow seal is broken. So I've got a new seal for this. It's actually cut. There's the outside piece. We'll peel that inside piece out. Clean this up. Clean up the dust shield. It's a little rusty, but it's really just a dust shield, so we'll reuse it. Okay, so I got the new O-ring seal installed. Removed the nuts off the studs. Installed the studs into the wheel bearing assembly. And put the backing plate on there with the wiring harness. I noticed this wiring harness to this speed sensor looked like it might have been compromised at one time. The wire looks a little like it's damaged, but hopefully, well, that didn't happen me taking it apart, but we'll see what happens when we put it back together. So there's the hub and bearing reinstalled, inner nuts torqued, C-clip or snap ring installed. Hard to see in there, but it is in there. And you might have to push the axle out from the inside a few thousandths of an inch. Wheel speed sensor harness routed. I still have to hook it up back here. Okay, so we got the outer hub installed and the manual hub works. It's locked now. So you can see the axle shaft turning. Unlocked. Now it spins free. And I've got the vacuum hose connected, and we're going to pump up the vacuum here. And if the seals are sealing and the O-rings are sealing, then it should hold vacuum as it is. Beautiful. And it should lock as it is. So you can see that the axle U-joint is now rotating. Murphy's Law of trouble lights are always trouble, never shining where you want them to. So you can see the axle is rotating, or the U-joint's rotating. Let's try this way. How's that? And relieve the vacuum off of it. And it should freewheel. Okay, so that works beautiful. Put the brake caliper back on, the wheel, reconnect the wheel speed sensor, and grease the ball joints, I guess, and we should be good to go. Or we're going to check the other side to make sure it's functional too. Okay, so there we have it. Caliper is installed, outer spindle is installed, bolts are torqued, tie rod end is 80 foot-pounds, I believe, and install a cotter pin. Wheel speed sensor is sealed with dielectric grease and plugged in and secured. I'll wipe some fingerprints off this brake rotor, and we should be good to go. Just have to check that other hub on the other side to make sure the vacuum mechanism is working, and put the wheel back on here. Maybe clean some rust off this flange here. Put the wheel on and torque the wheel nuts.